Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Miguel Speaks. And again, it's happening late at night because I go on my walks late at night. Recently, I've been entertaining this idea of doing 10,000 steps a day, which I think is a pretty reasonable thing to do, but doing it every day. And fact is, I don't get enough walking in during the day. So then I'm stuck getting all the walking in at nighttime. And so that's what I'm doing. Evening walks, evening strolls, which is working out for me. I was listening to an interesting um, audio recording today, or maybe it was yesterday, and it was an audio recording called Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda. And that's actually been a subject that I've been interested in lately, because this whole idea of dwelling on the past and sort of coming up with ideas about the way things should be or ought to be or must be or need to be, and how much trouble that those judgments cost us in terms of peace and happiness. And I recognize that to some extent those judgments can be useful, but I don't know, maybe I should say please when I ask for something, or say thank you when I receive something. Obviously, I should do that according to cultural norms. And I think that some of that has its place and is very important. It helps us live our best lives, certainly. But I think that quite often we take things to the extreme, and we end up just engaged in this sort of melancholy, and even angry making, sad making, fear making practice, thinking style of woulda, coulda, shoulda, just to engaging in that a little bit too much and making our lives miserable in the process. Like I said, I was listening to this audio tape, and there was one metaphor in it that I've been crunching in my mind a little bit lately, and it goes like this. The way the metaphor was described to me was this idea of an equation that, once the left side of the equation adds up to the right side of the equation, like 2 plus 2 equals 4. And the idea is that the analog to that in real life is that what happens is that people make judgments about the way things are. They make a statement like, oh, my life is great, or my life is the worst, or something like this, or I don't know anything, and what they'll do is then that'll be the total, right? The sort of what everything equals on the right-hand side of the equation. And then people will add up their lives to equal the total. They will come up with examples that sort of illustrate the fact of the result, right? The right side of the equation. And they just sort of do sort of corny math to make it all work right? And for example, they'll come up with examples of why they made poor decisions or something like that, or their life is a wreck, or whatever that is. And it's kind of an interesting way to think about life. It's kind of backwards. Ideally, life ought to be, I guess, a person makes assessments of the life as the various parts of their life as it is, on the left-hand side of the equation, and then they total it up, and it'll add up to the right-hand side of the equation. Whatever the resultant is, but it's not predetermined. It's sort of open to assessment, and so anyway, I'm sort of impressed by this idea, because a lot of what human beings do is sort of prejudge, and then prejudge with a great degree of certainty, and then come up with the rationale afterwards, right? It's kind of funny how Our life is all about that. David Allen, in his book Getting Things Done, talked about the natural planning model, where the first step is to make it up and then make it happen. And that's exactly the way the brain works. You sort of make up what you want the resultant to be, and then only then do you sort of assemble all the parts and pieces to sort of do the math so that the resultant is what sort of equals what you expect it to be. And this kind of thinking is it's just the way the brain works. And so I think it's important not to sort of play with the way this happens, the way this works, and maybe shoot for the stars. You might, instead of making judgments about we're the worst or whatever like that, that inner critic, maybe do the opposite and be the inner advocate, and then add up your life so that the resultant on the right hand side is just amazing and wonderful. Now, hey, I understand why we do the opposite too. There's a lot of good reasons why we sometimes default to the negative. And first of all, it's quite often it's what I'd call a conservative opinion. If you can imagine something being as worst as it can be, that's safe. If you're wrong, that's great. Then things turned out fine. But if you're right, well, then you're at least closer to the truth, and so you lose less. So it's actually, I can see how people decide to be negative. There's a lot of good reasons, I think, too. Also because sometimes you want to prepare for the worst case, so that you're fully prepared for whatever may be happening. That's the thing about human beings. We don't like risk, and we want to be fully prepared for whatever happens down the pike. And so that's why if we have a party of 10 people, we'll get 11 or 12 hamburgers instead of just 10, because we want to make sure that if the worst comes true, that is, maybe somebody invites unintended guests, that those guests will be taken care of. Hey, I get it. That makes a lot of good sense. There's also another factor why I think people default toward negative attitudes, and it's because they're motivating. And there's even more. Sometimes I think that, I actually do think that quite often our beliefs and thoughts are really expressions of our values. And let's say we lose a child in death, this child is someone who we valued for a good part of our life. And, I think it's sort of because we hold that value in such high esteem, that is the value of our families and our children. When, say, somehow we lose them or they perish, part of respecting that value and holding that value is sort of out of honor and respect to feel sadness about the loss of something we valued so much, and to reflect on that value again and again as sort of an expression of how deeply we valued that person. And so it's sort of an honoring. It's sort of out of respect and honor. We sometimes make ourselves feel sad or upset or angry that things didn't turn out the way we expect. And we attach to these ideas because of the values we hold so strongly. And I think that's totally okay. I think those that kind of sadness and fear and anger say, of a particular injustice. There are a lot of people who are focused on social justice, and their anger is sort of an outcrop or a result of their deep, deep valuing of social justice. And to take that anger away, it strikes me as being sort of, certainly for the person who values social justice, would be a sort of like dishonoring or disvaluing something they value so highly. So there's almost like I don't know, it's an expression of our values. Getting upset about stuff is an expression of our values. I like to say that in our relationships, the people who we love the most are also the people we hate the most. And that's a direct result of how much we value them. Like if we didn't value, say, our spouse or our partner, then we would be indifferent to how they behaved. Whether they behaved in a way that was agreeable or disagreeable, we'd be just completely indifferent if we didn't value them. But naturally, we do. We value these people in our lives, our spouses and our girlfriends, our partners, our children. And so what they do matters to us, and so naturally they make us upset. In fact, the more we love someone, I posit, the more we value them, and the more we are prone to feeling hatred and sadness and fear as a result of, loss or injustice or whatever it is. That's probably explains partly why like a lot of divorces are so knocked down, drag out. It's because there's a valuing that's going on, and that those feelings can last a lifetime. It's really, and they're expressions of our values for partnership and family and personal relations in general. How deeply they touch us. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to express is this idea that it's perfectly okay for us to feel angry, upset, sad and fearful in relation to our relationships, because they're expressions of our values and they're important parts of our lives. And that discomfort, that emotional pain, is just a necessary part of living and valuing things. And that's how we get meaning in the world. People talk about meaninglessness. Well, that's an existential fact of life, of course, because all values are subjective. And so what I'm suggesting is that to live a meaningful, purposeful life, deeply fulfilling, that in that life there must be fear, sadness, anger, and even happiness. And the intensity of those feelings are just a sort of a reflection of how deeply valued things are to you. And that's good. That's an indicator of how much meaning that you have a meaningful and purposeful life. So anyway, I guess so. Now, I want to put a caveat on that, because while I recognize the importance of this emotional pain arising at times, it can be too much at times. If you put emotional pain on a dial from, say, 0 to 10, maybe occasionally going up to level 8 in intensity for fear, sadness, or anger is fine, expected, normal. But, if a person finds themselves sort of cranked all the time, well, that's a problem. because you don't want to be so obsessed with or attached to a certain idea that you can't escape from it, and it ends up ruining your life. So anyway, there's a balance. We need some kind of balance. Humor is a great way to find balance in a world that there's strong values, and yeah. So really, I guess what I would suggest is have just enough meaning and value in your life so that that it's pleasing to you, that you enjoy it, that you enjoy the ups and downs, that there are bounds. I guess I want to say that there are bounds, and they'll be unique to each person. And but anyway, I guess that's what I want to say. Just don't be surprised that sometimes if you feel anger, frustration, sadness, disgust, those are signs that you're actually having a meaningful, purposeful life. But certainly don't become obsessed with those ideas. Find some relief, some succor, some comfort every once in a while in life, and then you'll be fine. All right, well, that turned out to be a deeper subject than I thought I was going to talk about. So, let's see what else has been going through my mind. So last night I didn't get a lot of sleep, and what happens to me is when I don't get enough sleep and I'm sort of in a dieting phase, I feel a lot of hunger. So today I felt a lot of hunger, and it was gnawing at me, and so I figured that I'd have a couple of cheat meals today. But I'm going to get back on the wagon tomorrow after I've satisfied my hunger today and eaten whatever I wanted. Tomorrow I'm going to get back on the wagon and start this weight loss program that I'm on. I'm trying to do a cut so that I can do some bulking later on, probably in the month of January, where I can do some serious bulking and start to increase the weights in my weightlifting regimen. Now, what's kind of cool is I've lost about 6 pounds already, and I fully expected that my performance in the gym would be decreased. But what I've noticed is that every time I've gone to the gym, despite losing 6 pounds, I'm still adding weight on pretty much all my lifts every week. So that must mean I'm doing something right. And I think I am doing something right. So I'm trying to eat just enough carbohydrates so that my muscles can store up the glycogen and give me decent workouts. And I'm eating more protein, trying to be protein focused when I'm in this caloric deficit, so that my muscles don't deteriorate too much, and then I can stay in an anabolic state and not go catabolic. Now, naturally, I'm expecting some catabolism, but so far it hasn't happened. I've only made gains in all my lifts, which is pretty freaking incredible. So I'm really pleased by that. So, like I said, I lost 6 pounds. I'm just going to lose an additional 4 pounds for a total of 10 pounds during this cut, and then I'm going to cycle down 10 pounds, up 10 pounds, down 10 pounds, down 10 pounds, up 10 pounds. And that's going to be I'm going to cycle +5, -5, +5, -5, over a period of, over a month. And so I'm going to try to build muscle by cutting and bulking. And we're going to see whatever that takes us. Who knows? We'll see. All of this may be for naught. But anyway, I feel good doing it because I did think that I was gaining a little bit more weight than I wanted to, and my body fat percentage was about 12%, and that was a little high for me. I wanted to get back to single digit body fat percentage again. Why? I don't know. Anyway, well, because I think I look better at single digit body fat percentage. Anyway, talk to you later. Bye bye.